Love is attention, she'd said. That is all you know on earth. He had it in his pocket now, and as he stood at the edge of the woods and watched the drifting stars jostle barely on the water like faint semaphores, and smelled the cold sediment of the lake and the cold char of the town, he squeezed the stone in his right palm and wished he could signal her as the sparked reflections on the water seemed to blink to the thrown galaxies arching above. I am here. Forever rhyming, forever loyal. Or maybe it was just an unheard music that time and space could never quiet. A music that turned and turned like a horse in the wheeling dark. And with that thought, and the warming stone chafing his palm, he thrummed with a grief and love so immense he could not contain it. To stand here. To breathe. To witness. He thought wildly in that moment, they better be enough. Chapter 1. They had come to the lake and the village that afternoon. They were on foot, and it was the first real town they'd seen. Like the general store at Four Corners and the farm 2 miles north, it was burned to the ground. The houses, mostly wood, had left masonry hearths for monuments and stone chimneys and concrete slabs and blackened stem walls. So close to the water, and the water table so high, few of the houses had basements. Those were pits filling with water like abandoned quarries. Of an entire town, only 4 dead, blackened bodies curled in the ruins. Where was everyone else? They had moved up and down what once were streets, and they shouted as if they might call them in like elk to a bugle. Nothing. Wind. The veering of the swallows who circled very high and silent and flashed violet green when the sun broke through. Not much sun left. In scudding cloud, it was less than an hour off the ridge. They came to the western edge of what once was a main street and stood against the dark woods. From there they could survey the mostly leveled ruins spilling downslope toward the lake. It was odd. Every vehicle they'd come across was a burned husk, but the docks of the marina still stood and the boats tied there. A scattering of day sailor sloops rocked at their moorings. Rocked in an evening wind that brought the smells of lake water and char. Jess had lifted the strapped binoculars to his eyes. Any living soul would be there in one of the boats, wouldn't they? Crouched in some cockpit, huddled below in a V-berth as cramped as a coffin. They would be there with 2 days' worth of canned food and a lake full of water to drink, wondering if they were lucky or not to survive. What the hell? Storey had said. Jess shook in his fleece jacket as if he were cold. He lowered the binocs. It's like some war. Jesus, Jess, it is a war. Storey was ashen. He held his rifle unslung in his left hand and his cell phone in his right. I can't reach Lena. No reception. None. Jess knew. He had thought he might find some news on his phone, but there was nothing. They had had nothing for 6 days. I've got to get home, Storey said again, mostly to himself. It had become a mantra. Yeah, sure. But neither knew how. South wasn't working. Unless they walked and waited. It might come to that. We'll hike up to Randall tomorrow, right? Jess said. See if we can rent a car or something. Then maybe try heading straight west to Quebec, then down. They were in the middle of northern Maine. There were a few small towns and nothing else but lakes, woods, ridges, logging roads. It was maybe 75 miles west to Quebec as the crow flies, and much longer by gravel road. Straight to New Hampshire was about 150 miles southwest, but there was no way to go straight. The coast was just as far. Storey stared hard at his oldest friend.